With that, may I present the author of the book, The Apostate, Dr. Mark Christian.
Hello, can you hear me okay? Good afternoon, everybody, or actually good evening. And thank you very much for coming today. How many of you have been coming here for today for the book? Because it's the book out. Raise your hands if it's, how many came for here because of the announcement about Ukraine and what's going on? So actually Ukraine is one of the biggest things on your mind today, don't you think? It's because, and you know, it is like one of those things that similar to everything going on and have been going on in our country for quite some time, is that the confusion and the lack of, you know, honest information and deception that comes out from the media. And it's really very difficult to look at our media outlets today as if they are not doing the job anymore. They're just a propaganda machines. And I'm very, very familiar with those because I grew up, as you know, many of you know, I grew up in Cairo, Egypt, where, you know, it is a dictatorship since I was born. And before that by a few years. And they have the propaganda machine, and it's actually was called the propaganda you know, ministry for quite some time by name. And it's kind of trying to really tell the people what the government wants to tell them. And unfortunately, today in America, most of our media outlets, and I will argue that even Fox News is one of those that they have their own agenda and they're pushing their own narrative and not telling us everything that's going out there whatsoever. And I can give you many examples. How many of you know the discussions, for example, that took place between the Crown Prince of Saudi Arabia, you know, today about the United States and about Israel and so forth? I don't think anybody knows about that. I don't think anybody knows about Qatar visit to the United States and negotiations that took place about Ukraine and gas and all of that stuff. You know, most of the stuff, it is hindered from the American people, and we are given what they want us to know. Fortunately, I do not abide by their rules. I actually venture out and I get to know what's going on in the world because I kind of use my language skills, knowing Arabic. Even though my accent is kind of a setback, but I can look at that as a privilege when I'm reading other news outlets and so forth, and just see what's going on in our country and how the world looks at today. Okay, so I actually like to go a little bit into history to understand where I'm coming from, or what is it my argument about Ukraine today. And before I get started, I want to make this very clear, and I will repeat it multiple times. Putin is not a good guy whatsoever, because, you know, in my conversation or my argument or my statements, I don't want you to get any wrong idea that I am actually advocating for Russia, you know, invading Ukraine whatsoever. And maybe I'm kind of giving away some of my narrative, but the fact of the matter is Putin is a dictator. Putin is a guy who has been in the leadership of Russia since 2000, since the beginning of the millennium. I was actually, you know, in Europe when he was announced as the president at that time in 2000. You know, in the turning of the millennia, and since then, and even before that, he is a very aggressive man, a very stubborn man. He looks out for himself, number one, and number two, for Russia. He was devastated by the fall of the Soviet Union, and he continued fighting for the glory of Russia and the Russian people. And this is his agenda, and he never backs out from it. One thing that as well you need to know about Putin, that he is not a guy that is easily cornered or pushed into compromise. He does not compromise whatsoever. You know, he can have talks, and I need you to remember that very well as I continue going on in my argument. He is willing to have talks here and there. He is willing to listen to an argument, but when you step on his toes, he's going to push and he's going to punch and he's going to fight back, and he does not get forced into the corner or compromise whatsoever. Whether this is a good thing or a bad thing, this is who he is, and that has been shown in multiple times throughout his tenure as the leader of Russia. Sounds good? Okay. So, you know, it seems like the media wants us to focus on the current conflict that just started, few days ago, or even has been hyped in the media, a couple of weeks ago, and just focus on that without looking at the depth of the problem or the beginning of the problem or what's going on. And, if you look at that today, Ukraine sitting doing absolutely nothing. And then all of a sudden, Russia is putting their military forces around the border and then invading them. And that looks like a very aggressive act. And there is a big problem. But you know what? This is not the full pictures. And you have to understand history to know where we at today. Make sense? I think that's actually, normal when we are dealing with any problem. And even when we look at the Ukrainian-Russian problem today, or the Ukrainian-Russian kind of conflict, we need to look actually outside of the box and look at what was going on, and other forces that will play a goal or a role into this. So I have to take you back in 2008 in the election that we had when Obama won his presidency and was sworn in as the first African-American or half African-American president to the United States of America. And I have to mention that he is half American, not half American, sorry. Didn't mean that. I didn't say that. Half African-American, okay, because his mother is white woman from Kansas, where he grew up with his in-laws in Kansas, and then after that in different countries and so forth, okay? As soon as he's sworn, I don't know how many of you do remember still that he did go into different places and has this apology tour. I don't know if you remember that or not. And he was going around to talk, especially in Muslim countries. And he visited my own, birthplace, Cairo, Egypt. And he spoke at the university that I went to in medical school. And he made that very big speech at Cairo University, where I went. It's my alma mater. And he made a speech about apologizing for the actions of America and American troops and the military since 9/11. And he said that one of the best things is voices out there is the voice of the call of prayer for Islam. And he understands how awesome and beautiful is the voice of, reciting the Quran. And he talked about Islam has nothing to do with terrorism and so forth. And he's apologizing and so forth. Do you remember that? Okay, that's good. And then soon afterwards, he went to Saudi Arabia. I don't know if many of you remember that he actually bowed down and kissed the hand of the king of Saudi Arabia in a very famous picture. And then they tried to apologize about it in the media by saying he tripped or he did not mean it or whatever. Some of us, they think some of us are idiots that they can believe banana stuff. But, I think we can see through stuff, right? So you remember that. Okay. And, Muslim countries, in a way, actually start perceiving Obama as a very interesting guy. It seems like he's not an African-American only. They start taking, pride, Muslims taking pride that he's born to a Muslim parent. And some people actually start saying, he's really a Muslim. He never converted to Christianity. He's actually deceiving American people by being, a good Muslim and so forth. Those are discussions happened in the Middle East, and actually some people start naming their kids Obama in favor of the guy and so forth, okay? That's really, truly happened. But then things start changing very quickly. Something called Arab Spring. I don't know if you remember those kind of actions that took place, right? Towards the end of 2009, it's like a year into office, you start hearing about some kind of unrest and some kind of talk. And all of a sudden, you have Google, Facebook, State Department, Hillary Clinton, God bless her heart, and Obama, and everybody working together to make some kind of action within a small country in the Middle East called Tunisia. And, they start seeing that there is a group of people rising in the streets. And then there was those kind of famous, and I want you to pay attention to that, famous secret shooters in the street that comes in. They are, very good, having, very strong, powerful rifles that nobody where they're coming from, all dressed in black, showing up in the streets, and then start shooting people, creating more chaos and so forth. And all of a sudden they disappear, leaving large number of people dead in the streets in Tunisia. And till today, nobody knows where they come from and who they are and all that kind of stuff. And then uprising in Tunisia. And all of a sudden you start seeing the Muslim Brotherhood, an organization that has been in existence for almost 100 years, an organization that is carrying the flag of, or the banner or the fight of resurrecting the political Islamic movement or the Islamic empire back in place again after it has been demolished in 1920. This organization has been working in the shadows for quite some time. They were not that, people didn't know about it. When I came to the United States and I was actually having my interview, and I had a very thorough interviews, and I talked from day one about my family relationship to the Muslim Brotherhood organization. You'll see this in the book. And some of the people didn't even know what the Muslim Brotherhood. Today, I think most people knows, right? Because of Arab Spring, all of a sudden, the Muslim Brotherhood start taking foot in Tunisia and removing the progressive, very westernized government and replace them with the Muslim Brotherhood. Muslim countries start taking notice and didn't think much of it. They just wondering what's going on. But then soon after, Libya followed, which is the adjacent country to Tunisia. And all of a sudden, the same scenario by different players and a little bit of a twist to fit the country of Libya. And the same thing took place in Libya. You remember that? Some of it? I think most of you will start waking up to the problem of Libya when you heard about Benghazi, and I will come to that. But Libya followed in Tunisia. Still, the world was wondering what's going on. And the rest of the Muslim leaders who loved Obama so much were having a big question mark. Is this guy a Muslim who are helping us? Is he apologizing for America, or he's going to throw us out? There was like a little bit of like a mystery about Obama and what he's trying to do. And people don't make out of it anything until the same scenario start taking place in the streets of Cairo, the largest population in Muslim countries speaking Arabic, because in Asia there is bigger populations, but this was the biggest Arabic speaking Muslim country in the Middle East, the most stable regime, the most westernized regime, the most American affiliated regime that has been working with America for 20 something years. They have been close to each other, and all of a sudden that regime has been get the kick from Obama. And the famous phone call between Mubarak and Obama, and also Mubarak's wife and Obama, asking him, what are you going to do for us? And he said, get out of my face. And they didn't talk even the phone call. Then people start realizing, seems like Obama has something to do with it. Seems like Obama have something to do with the uprising of the Muslim Brotherhood. The organization that was in the shadows all of a sudden is pushed into the front. And soon after, the Muslim Brotherhood was able to take power in Egypt, which was a shock wave to all the Muslim world, and all of the other countries like United Arab Emirates, Saudi Arabia, Kuwait, all of the other countries start taking notice and said, this guy is up to something and it's not good. And it seems like he's helping the Muslim Brotherhood, and we don't know who's next, and we're going to be out. So other countries start taking some precautions and kind of, action towards Obama and to see what's going on. Okay. And United Arab Emirates, one of the main countries, most wealthy countries in the Middle East, decided that they're going to announce the Muslim Brotherhood organization a terrorist organization. And they took a drastic action by kicking every Muslim Brotherhood out of their country. Most of the members were actually enjoying Emirates and enjoying the money and the position, and some of them even the citizenship of Emirates. All of them stripped out of their citizenship, kicked out from government offices and stuff. And it was an amazing scenery, to be honest with you, to see the Muslim Brotherhood humiliated and kicked out of the Emirates, and even organizations that is functional in the United States deemed by United Arab Emirates as a terrorist organization, like CARE, Islamic Society of North America, MSA. Those organizations exist and function till today as a 501c3 organization in the United States, has been announced by the United Arab Emirates as terrorist organizations. I don't know if you know all of those details or not, but this was something that, it was lots of information. I don't know if you paid attention to all of it, but this was part of the happenings of the Arab Spring. And then Saudi Arabia followed through. Saudi Arabia was carrying the banner of Sharia Islam and all of that stuff. When it started coming to the Muslim Brotherhood, they start taking their precautions as well and trying to be very cautious when they are dealing with Obama and to see what he's up to. And they start actually try to kick the Muslim Brotherhood out. and to try to distance the Muslim Brotherhood from, leadership in Saudi Arabia, and to try to take really serious precautions from letting the Muslim Brotherhood or Obama take over their country and kick them out. Okay, are you following me with all of that stuff? So now it became very clear to many of the leaders in the Muslim world that Obama's administration is really helping and aiding the Muslim Brotherhood to take over the countries, establish the old glory of the Islamic Empire. And, even though they love Islam and they are all Muslims and on the same page, but they don't want to lose their position and their kingship and their presidency or the dictatorship that they have. Each one of them start becoming very protective of their seat or their, glory, and start to distance themselves from Obama. All of that on the side. Things start happening in a different way when Obama and Hillary start going confrontational with the Iranians and with Syria face to face. Why? That was a different game completely. The next country on the line for the Arab Spring was Syria. And what happened is Syria is governed by a Shiite Muslim, different from the rest of the countries. And it is backed up by the Russians. They are very close relationship with the Russians and also the Iranians. Russians looks at Syria and Iran as their proxies. They look at those as the biggest market for their weaponry. They are the countries that help Russia to continue have influence in the Middle East, which is something that is very important for both, powers, United States and Russia. And it was a big threat to the Russians that Obama is trying to take one of these beloved countries away from the Russians, which is Syria. And what was taking place is Benghazi, heard the word Benghazi before a lot, right? Something that has never been in the media much, and it was kind of obscured and covered up. And I talked about it a lot, that there is a big argument to be made. Mike Flynn, one of them that talked about it, that the attack on Benghazi has been backed by the Iranians and the Russians. I don't know if you've heard that before or not, but this is one of the things that has been kept big secrets in DC and the United States. One day it will come out. It's very similar to who killed Kennedy, who attacked us in Benghazi. That question is going to be answered later on, and we'll find out. But many people understand that Russia and Iranians have been, involved in that. And the reason for it, because in Benghazi was not just an embassy, as many of you know, it was a post for our intelligence, and it was controlled by our State Department and by Hillary and by Obama and by many others to make Benghazi a station or a post where they collect weaponry and collect fighters and then ship them across the Mediterranean through Turkey into Syria so they can take out the Syrian regime over there and continue aiding the uprising in Syria. Syria was a little bit difficult and continue to be difficult today, and Obama never succeeded. You know why Obama never succeeded in Syria? Because of the Russians, because of Putin, because of the Iranians, okay? This is why Syria have never lost its leadership. Bashar al-Assad was a president during the uprising, still a president till today. So Obama failed, to implement his plan, and Hillary failed to implement her plan in Syria. The reason? Russia and Iran. Follow me so far? How is that all related to Ukraine? Well, here is the thing. Soon after Benghazi, all the secrets has been kept as much as it can be. And one of the reasons that it was kept as a secret, definitely you remember Hillary hearings, and also that she was able to get lots of privileges and destroy the computers and the bleaching of the computers, all that stuff. So all of the information about Benghazi had been destroyed. And I will argue that Obama is very fully aware of how Hillary was hiding, because he has a very important benefit from hiding the problems of Hillary himself too, because all of the information, if came out, he's going to be, dragged into it. Following with me? Okay. So now, the other thing, actually, by the way, about Benghazi, why all the information I just talked about and the involvement of Russians and involvement of Iranians and the weaponry is because Mr. McCain, you remember McCain, was involved in this operation as well, big time. So they brought him in as a Republican. So they have Republicans and Democrats, helping each other. So they were able to have a cover up. So because if the Republicans pushed hard to, get the operation out and get the secrets out, then McCain will be indicted as well. So he had a very interest into covering it up as well. Make sense to you? I'm not, I talked about Benghazi a lot and wrote about it a lot in, multiple magazines. You can go back and look at all the arguments that I talked about in the past, and I can answer some of your questions. But why I'm mentioning Benghazi today? Because coming out of Benghazi, it was a huge, big punch in the face of Obama, Hillary, and all the cabal that was helping the Muslim Brotherhood. And it continued to be like a roadblock, a big roadblock for the Arab Spring till today. I think it put a halt on the Arab Spring and the whole agenda of Obama. What is his agenda? To help and aid the Muslim Brotherhood to be implemented into the leadership of all Muslim countries in the Middle East. You want me to repeat that? Obama wants to implement the Muslim Brotherhood, the Islamic movement, into leadership in the Middle East. Simple than that. Sounds good? And he was using Hillary and using others to do, and they were happily helping out. Why he had a halt and why he had a roadblock? Because of the Russians and the Iranians. Immediately after Benghazi, some of you do remember, some of you don't, you heard about the reset or the Iranian nuclear deal, right? That actually took place immediately. The Iranian deal was basically not to stop Iran from having a nuclear weapon. It was a bribery by Obama to try to get the Iranians some benefits so they will stop stopping him. They would not continue stopping him. That's basically the whole Iranian deal was about. The Iranian deal was a bribe to the Iranians. Make sense? Okay? The Iranian deal was a bribe to the Iranians. Come sit with me. I will talk to you. You are mad at me because of what I'm doing. Hey, I would throw you a bone and leave me alone. That's what Obama is doing. Well, the Iranian was very happy to take the bone, and they've never did anything to Obama. They never did. And you know why? Because here is the weakness of Obama. Obama tried to put a face of a very nice guy, very charismatic, very awesome. Everybody loves him. He's a star in his own terms. Everybody like him. And he likes to do all his dirty work by proxies or by under the table or behind doors. And leaders and real strong leaders look at this as a big weakness, because when you're doing that, you don't look like a strong leader. You don't look like a real leader that I can deal with. You're kind of a secret, and secret is weakness, and weakness can be exploited. Make sense? Right? So he threw a bone at the Iranians. The Iranians took the bone and just threw Obama, under the bus, did not do anything for him. Make sense? Okay. Then Russia comes into play. Obama tried to play with Russians and to have a conversation. You remember when I said Putin is willing to engage in a conversation, but he is not willing to compromise? You remember that? I want you to remember that very well, because this is the kind of the mark of what's going on today. So immediately after that, many of you are not paying attention. I was crazily, paying attention to everything of the dealing with Putin and Obama and what's going on. Well, I have to take you back for a little bit. Before the Arab Spring altogether started, there was a famous picture of Hillary walking into a small room, looks like a hotel room or something, with a meeting with Putin. And she has like a toy button in her hand, this red one. You remember that? Looks very tacky. And it was a sign of, let us click on this button. And, Putin was looking at her like, I'm not a baby here. It was looking very awkward, to be honest with you. But this was a sign of, hey, let's start a good relationship and reset the relationship between Russians and America. And they were saying, let's think about, forget about the past. And one of them is, hey, Russia, we will get you into the globalist agenda that we have, and we're going to work together and so forth. And Putin said, yeah, you want me to click on this? I will look weird, but yeah, let's do it. And he did, and everything went fine, okay? And Putin took this under advisement and just let's see what's happening in the future, okay? And Obama was trying to make good with Putin and to make things work. When the Arab Spring started and all of that stuff, Putin said, I'm not going to be part of your plan, because this is going to deny me my privileges, and it's not going to help me in my own leadership. It's not going to help Russia, Russian people. It's not going to help me either. So this is the beginning of the crack between the Obama administration and Putin. Following me, all of that? Took you back a little bit. So then let's move forward again to Benghazi. Right after Benghazi, the relationship was started having a crack. Obama tried to talk to Putin, and you will see lots of pictures, them together before the C8 or before meetings, and they have like a, a conversation with each other. If it was Trump, we would have known exactly what was going on, because every conversation Trump has is actually out in the media. With Obama, nobody knows anything, right? Because it's a secret one-on-one. You don't have anybody in the middle. Remember, when Trump is having a conversation, they say you have to have another person in the room. And you have to, American people needs to know. No, American people needs to know when they electing the president if he's doing something wrong, but there is secret information. Well, all the rules is allowed for Obama, but none of them are for Trump. I don't know if you remember or understand what I'm talking about here, okay? So anyway, Obama and Putin try to have conversation with each other after Benghazi. Basically, in my opinion, and actually from the media outlets, Obama was trying to talk Putin into leaving him alone, let him do what he wants to do in the Middle East. Putin hears, listens, but does not compromise. So he did not compromise then, did not compromise now. Then right after that, Obama tried to twist Putin's hand by the aid of the rest of the European countries, and kicked Putin out of the C8 and became C7. I don't know if you remember that or not. And start kind of punishing Putin and cornering him to tell him, hey, if you're not going to compromise, I can punish you. Well, Putin did not care whatsoever. He continued his path and said, you are not going to do what you want to do in the Middle East, and succeeded one after time. Putin was always making a roadblock. And here is another thing. Putin actually started helping the Egyptians to overturn what Obama did in Egypt. And he took away the Muslim Brotherhood out of leadership in Egypt, reversed action, and give Egypt back to the military. So he's not only compromised to Obama, he actually started going after the Arab Spring and changing the tide, okay? So this is when Ukraine came into place. In 2014, was in the middle of all of that stuff. Ukraine was, as usual, helping, and they were, as usual, celebrating their anniversary for revolution and so forth. And towards the end, the last day of the celebration, all of a sudden, things erupted in the streets. The famous mark of shooters came into the streets, all dressed in blacks, shooting people on the streets. And then all of a sudden, the celebration turned riots, and the riots turned bloody. And it was the revolution of dignity in Ukraine. What is that? Have you ever heard about the revolution of dignity in Ukraine before? Okay. That was actually a turning point in Ukraine. Well, before that day, Ukraine was, even though an independent country, but the president of Ukraine was actually a Russian citizenship, okay? And he was not, affiliated with the West whatsoever. So Ukraine was a real proxy to Russians. And the Russians love it so much because Ukraine, logistically and strategically, very important for the Russians. It is the second biggest country next to Russia in size, 40-something million people. It is the gate to Europe from Russia. It is very important logistically and militarily and national security and all of that stuff. Russia is cannot compromise making Ukraine an enemy of Russians whatsoever. It is so close, so important in multiple ways. And all of a sudden, the 2014, the mark of the people on the streets, the riots, overthrow of the Russian president, and replacing it with a new democracy, the spring in Kyiv or the spring in Ukraine. And all of a sudden, you have a very strong American-backed government. It's not the Muslim Brotherhood there, but it's American-backed government in Ukraine. And that was meant to threaten Putin on his turf, because kicking him out of the C8 did not work. The talks did not work. He continued doing his thing. So Obama thought, and this is what actually Putin said multiple times, I did not recognize this revolution. I do not recognize this new government. I'm not going to work with them. This is the work of America. And there's multiple meetings that he said that publicly. But they did not do any kind of military action. It was just a direct threat. It's the beginning of it. All of a sudden, Ukraine moved from a Russian-affiliated country to a West-affiliated country to a United States-affiliated country. It was a direct threat to the Russian president and Russia altogether. You're following me? Okay. This is why the annexing of Crimea and other things that took place at that time. Following all of that stuff? Then things have changed. Trump came into power and sworn in as a president in 2016. And the whole agenda of Obama in the Middle East and the Arab Spring ended. Everybody knew what's going on. Obama was treated horribly in the United States, in Saudi Arabia in his last visit. Everybody exactly knew what Obama and Hillary is about. And things have changed big time. Russians start feeling safe that Ukraine is not going to be a threat. United States is not going to try to continue doing what they're doing in Syria and Iran and other countries. And things have changed. So things calmed down during Trump administration. Well, 2020 took place. And all of a sudden, we have Mr. Biden getting 81 million voters, as you know, and becoming the president of the United States of America. Was very interesting, event. But, let's be honest with each other. Biden is not the president. He's not the governing. He cannot even govern anything, right? I'm not saying anything other than I don't think he's capable even for deciding what he's going to have for lunch. He doesn't know, So somebody else is running the country, and everybody knows that who's running the country. Some people answer the question. It is the, his White House staff or his chief of staff. That's baloney stuff. Who is running the country today is Obama. And it is his dream job. He's going to be working behind doors. He's going to be fundraising and doing all the kind of cool stuff. He's going to take the TV shows and the radio shows and look very cool and nice and going to Hollywood and stuff like that. But Obama is, he's the one who's calling the shots. And, I'm not even making allegations, actually. They made a YouTube video between Obama and Biden that they actually publicly said, we converse over social media because, COVID and so forth, all the time with each other. And Biden calls me and I answer his questions. So they talk with each other to figure out how to do things. That's not a secret. This is Obama and Biden doing this. You can go YouTube and see that. Okay. And why they do this? Because, he likes to cover his bases and he likes to do things by the book. So I think that was the reason for that video. Anyway, so Obama into office means Obama's agenda back into place. And I would argue that, as most of the Middle East countries right now understand, that Biden coming back into office is the Arab Spring, 0.2 or 2.0. And there is a real threat and real support of the Muslim Brotherhood again to all Muslim countries. But, the old people that has been stopping him or stopping Obama is Iran and Russia. Those are the two key players that actually played a big role in stopping Obama's ambition of getting the Muslim Brotherhood into the Middle East. So they are, engaged in negotiations with the Iranians again, trying to bribe them again and try to do whatever they take. But on the Ukrainian front, they did something completely different. They know very well that the Russians are not going to compromise. They are not going to be bribed. Putin is not going to be able to buy into any of that stuff. So in the very beginning, he let Putin have his second oil, line, under the Mediterranean to the stuff. It did not do anything for Putin. Putin will take the gifts, but he will never compromise. So they start using Ukraine as a real threat to the Russian people, or to Russia, or to Putin. They start threatening by making Ukraine join the NATO. They are making Ukraine part of the European Union. They, United States start pushing enormous amount of money and weaponry into Ukraine. They're trying to put missiles and try to put other things. They try to send contractors, fighters into Ukraine, try to make Ukraine a real threat to Russia, to Putin personally. And all of a sudden, Putin starts seeing that Ukraine is not only affiliated with the United States, it became a real threat to his national security. And he sent multiple messages to Biden into the conversations that took places face to face. And after that, that you guys need to stop using Ukraine as a proxy. Do not let Ukraine join the NATO. Do not so. And then he started putting his military forces on the border. And he said, I mean business. Stop using Ukraine as a national threat to me. Many of you do remember the Bay of Pigs, right? Do you remember that? You remember when the Russians at that time moved missiles into Cuba? right? And that became a national security of the United States of America. I'm not justifying anybody's action, but a real good American Democratic president at that time, Mr. Kennedy, was able to stand up to the Russians, and he told them, I mean business, right? And the Russians start to see if he's bluffing or not, and he showed them that Americans do not bluff. We are prepared for attacks, and everybody started getting masks and stuff. I was not even born, actually, by the way, so I'm young, okay? And but masks will start spreading, people doing bunkers, as I've seen, right? And America said, if you mean business, we mean it too, and we will take care of it. And actually, the strong strength of America pushed the Russians to pull off their missiles and to back out from the threat to the United States and so forth, right? Well, that turns the table today. The United States is moving our threat to the Russian borders and putting it over there. So he said, do not do this to me. I am not gonna compromise whatsoever. You're following what I'm saying here? Okay. Here is one thing that, I will be 100% for America to do that to the Russians if it is for the interest of America or the American people. Would you agree with that? If actually Russia is a threat to the United States, I have no problem whatsoever if we're gonna move our military forces into Ukraine and to threaten Putin in his turf. I have no problem whatsoever. But if we are doing this for the sake and the help and the aid of an Obama agenda to implement the Muslim Brotherhood, I don't think this is the best of our interest. Do you think so? I don't think I want to send my son, or anybody want to send his son to fight for the Muslim Brotherhood. That's bottom line. If we are threatening Russia, if we are threatening Putin for the reasons that is of American interest, I have no problem. I will stand with it. I will cheer for it. I will do whatever it takes to support it. But if we are doing for a globalist Muslim Brotherhood agenda, absolutely not. That's my stand on that, okay? And here is the thing that I want to highlight as well. The Ukrainian people, right now are the victims of all of this, and the American people are the victims as well. You have people who have done what they have done in Ukraine and left Ukraine at the crossfire of Putin and doing absolutely nothing to them. The Biden, cabal, or the whole oligarchy that is in Europe and in the United States was thinking that they will check Putin and Putin will compromise. Well, Putin is no Republican who is going to compromise. So I'm sorry for throwing Republicans at the bus. They are not willing, he's not willing to compromise. And he made it very clear, this is a threat to national security. I'm not going to take it. And he made that very clear multiple times, more than once. And, Biden did not back out, or European nations did not back out. The French continue doing what they're doing. The Germans continue doing what they're doing. And basically the United States continue doing what they're doing. And Biden says, I'm going to send the military forces. I'm going to send thousands of troops. I'm going to continue sending money. I'm going to do that stuff. That doesn't mean that Putin is right for invading Ukraine. Again, I'm not saying Putin is a good guy, but I think actually Biden and European nations like Macron and people in Germany and others to act like they are the innocent people, that they are on high horses and they are the saviors of the world. I'm not buying that. They are equally responsible of the bloodshed of the Ukrainian people as much as Putin is. And we should not, as American people, let them get away with it. And the media is not helping. The leaders, whether Republican or Democrat, is not helping, and nobody wants to talk about it whatsoever. Everybody just say, okay, we're going to go with the flow. You have to remember something. The president of Ukraine that everybody's making a hero today, number one, he has no experience in governing. He was implemented as a president of Ukraine after having a career in the circus. He's an entertainer, okay? He has no background in politics, but he was willing to be a good boy, or a good handler or a proxy for America. So this is why he became a president. And by the way, also you have to remember, this is Biden himself called him the son of whatever one time on TV because he wants to send him money. So Biden talking about Ukraine president today as the best man ever, it should not fly when you have on tape the same Biden calling the same Zelensky the son of whatever. You remember that or not? Some of you don't, right? Because the media does not play that. You know, during Obama administration, when Zelensky did not want to do something for him, he said on tape and said, I'm going to give you $1 billion for money, but you have to do this for his son. And he called him a bad word. Okay. You remember that? That was the same Zelensky. And by the way, also, you know, it's the same guy that actually the reason for Trump first impeachment. You know, when they said the phone call between Zelensky and Trump was telling him about Biden and so forth. So all of a sudden he become the best man ever. Should not fly with the American people. But again, people don't remember much. They have a short-term memory and the media is not doing its job. So the fact of the matter is Biden does not like Zelensky, does not like Ukraine, does not like the Ukrainian people. He was just a puppet himself to try to use Ukraine as a field to threaten Putin. And what did Putin do after sending all those threats? He said, enough of this. And he started going in. He says, I'm going to demilitarize, you know, Ukraine. Basically, he wants to remove the government that's affiliated with the United States. And he wants to destroy all of their weaponry and all their weapons and so forth. So he does not feel the threat that Ukraine is representing. And actually send to, you know, the United States and to Europe that he means business. And he's one of the very first leaders, actually, which he said a very scary thing. He said, if you're going to try to get in my way, you will see hell that you have never seen before. He also said, this is Putin. He said, I have nuclear weapons and I am not afraid to use it. And he starts showing off some of his weaponry and, you know, making a list of his stuff. So you have Biden dragging in us into a World War III and a nuclear one that will annihilate our planet for the sake of what? What did actually Putin or Russia threat the United States in itself? Because they were helping Trump to get into office? This is their argument? What is it that actually Russia did that we start doing all of that stuff? The real reason is because Putin standing in the way of the agenda of the globalists and standing in the face of the Muslim Brotherhood. That is what's happening today. Okay? And here is the biggest problem. Do you have any questions so far? I'm throwing a whole bunch of information.
Okay. So I heard that Ukraine is divided like the eastern part and the western part, and that the western part is infested with the money cabal, which has the Clintons, the Obamas, and the big banking and all those guys, and that they were doing money laundering over there. And that's why the United States was hanging in there. But what I hear you saying is, no, it's really more about the big picture of the of Islam
And the globalist and the globalist as well.
Oh, okay. So it's kind of a twosie thing.
Yes, yes.
And the second part, thank you for that clarity. And the second part is I'm wondering, for the people that are under Russia's shelter that are Muslims, is Putin smart enough to leave them alone with their faith and let them practice their faith? Are they operating like that, like Sharia, or is he pushing the Russian faith, which is Russia is the God, Russia is the government?
Putin is not concerned about religion from that perspective whatsoever. And I have to mention something about Ukrainian people, how awesome they are. You know, many of you don't know that about history, and I just gonna mention something. Ukraine has been an independent country for many, many years and so forth. During the history of Ukraine, it has been governed by the Ottoman Empire at some point in time. So they were part of the Islamic Empire at some point in time. But the Ukrainian people is one of the very few nations that was governed by Islam and still continue to be Christians, and they paid their jizya or their poll tax and did not compromise their own religion whatsoever. Because, you know, Egyptians and all of those other countries, when they're governed by Islamic Empire, they come to Islam very quickly and become a Muslim country. Till today, the majority of Ukrainians are Christians, and it's a Christian nation. They did not, during the time when the Islamic Empire was governing them, they choose to pay the jizya, which is a poll tax, so they can continue becoming Christians. And this is what they did. And it was a very hard shift for them. And you can read about that in history. So I think that Ukrainian people are actually a very good people. There was corruption over there. Absolutely. There was enormous amount of, you have to remember Joe Biden's son, getting the $1 billion Burisma and all of that's in Ukraine. So there is a lot of corruption has been happening there, and the corruption surpasses 2014 or before, I don't know the right word surpasses, before 2014. It has been going on for so long. And, Russian system is full of corruption and full of oligarchy and full of money laundering and full of all bunch of bad stuff that takes place. So Ukraine have been infested with that for a long, long time. So definitely you will find all of those people who are bad people, like you mentioned, some of them, yeah, they will take advantage of that. But the bigger picture is, you have to understand that. This is what I want to make and highlight big time, that Ukraine has been used by Biden since he took office as a field to threaten Putin and his turf for the sake of the globalists and the Muslim Brotherhood. It's not because of eliminating corruption. It's not because of any of that stuff. And Putin did not take it, did not take the threat. He turned the threat against the instigators and said, enough of this. That is the bottom line of it. Does not make Putin a good person whatsoever. Does not. Go ahead. China is a key player in all of this. You have to understand this, and all of us need to understand this, that Putin would not have the guts without the help and the aid and the support and the thumbs up from China. China right now is the major power that is the real threat to the United States. And that China is so happy with what's going on. They are staying quiet and silent. When somebody brings that there was a conversation between Putin and Xi, they say, don't mention our names. They're acting like the big guy now. They are not playing nice with anybody. And, some people will say, because China wants to see what the United States is going to do so they can respond by also invading Taiwan. Well, I think it's even bigger than Taiwan. Those countries today, and if you look at the media outlets, if you look at the conversation happening between leaders today, everybody looking at the United States today as a very weak, burdened by enormous amount of debt, in fights like beyond anything they have seen. The United States, America is weak in their opinion. This is a time that the Chinese and the Russians and all of the enemies of the United States is ready to strike and bring the United States on its knees. So the Chinese backing of Putin is not only to see or take over Taiwan, it is actually to take down the United States as well. That's how bad it is. And, unfortunately, I have to bring this up very quickly. We have the most mighty military forces ever existed on earth. That's the fact. But since Biden took office, the military has been under investigation, and because of the COVID vaccine, because of the LGBTQ, because of the critical race theory, the military is consumed by a $90 billion project by the Biden administration to investigate every military personnel. And unfortunately, our congressmen voted for that money, to all of them actually, except, one of them, Adrian Smith, did not, thank you, did not vote for it. And basically, $90 billion has been targeting military personnel. Every military officer has to submit themselves into investigation, turn out the social media, cell phones, to everything that they have to make sure that they are not terrorists. So they are investigating our military personnel for terrorists, not because of affiliation of terrorism or Al-Qaeda, but affiliation with Catholic Church or evangelical Christians or pro-life. Those are the lists. I'm not making that up. Okay. And actually, if they are Trump supporters or not, or they are, ultra conservative, as they call them, what is the relationship between them and January 6th insurrection, all of that stuff. So our military is consumed with that stuff. That is bringing the morale of the United States military personnel down, to be honest with you. That, would you actually feel like you want to fight if you are under investigation like that? I would argue not so much, right? I'm not bringing United States military down. I think at the time of need, they will fight to win, and they will fight for keeping the United States safe. But are we going to have leaders that make orders like that? And I heard this in the last conference I was at with top military leaders, and I came out of this meeting really, really so mad. My blood pressure was so high, my blood, like I was boiling, to be honest with you, from what's happening in our military. And one of the statements that they said, and I want to mention two statements from that meeting. I think I will have the liberty to mention them, and lots of other stuff was kind of, supposed to be confidential. One thing is they said that everybody who is two-star general and above is all of them has been handpicked according to CRT and all of the stuff that I mentioned, and not because of their ability to fight for the United States. So for us to have a good military, we have to have a good leader that will eliminate or let go all of the two-star generals and above, so we can start having a military based on fighting forces and so forth. And I was, to my surprise, I didn't know that something similar to this happened in World War II. I didn't know that before, but I learned from that meeting that we had something similar to this when we start engaged in the operations of World War II. And that is something that was to my surprise. I forgot the second one. I'll remember it in a second. Do you have any question?
Scripture keeps coming to me that
Amen.
the Father has promised the Son the inheritance, the nations for his inheritance.
Amen.
And I know that God is in all of this. I believe that he's uncovering, he's exposing the cabal, the whole international scene, and it might take something like this to do it. But I'm really praising him today. I'm really excited
Amen.
to see what is going to happen.
Amen. Actually, I agree with you 100%. Sometimes it takes a nudging, sometimes to hit bottom, sometimes to understand how things are for things to turn around. It took a cross for the resurrection. So it is very important that even if things are not going that well, we have to understand and believe that we have a victorious God, and we have a nation that based on the teachings of Jesus Christ, whether they want to deny that or not, it is the fact, and it will continue being the fact. So if we continue clinging to our faith and to believe in a God that is victorious, and to try to do our part by educating people around us on the truth, then God will deliver us. I totally believe that 100%.
These people have got to be looking at our political system right now and saying, okay, we've got until 2024.
Yes.
After that, we don't have anything. I mean, Biden will be gone. I think the Democrats are going to be in sorry shape, and praise God, we're going to be back on top.
Mm-hmm.
So what's going to happen between now and 2024?
Unfortunately, a lot, and I'm not a fortunate teller to know what's going to happen, but what's happening and what's moving is a lot. Don't take what's happening in Ukraine easily, because this is a fire. And if you heard Biden's speech that he said from the teleprompter in the State of the Union, probably he doesn't know what he's talking about, because he stumbled and then go back and say it again. I'm not making fun of a guy who's old. I'm just I'm sad for the status of the United States of America. And, there is nothing better than to show the picture of the United States political system today, other than the picture of the State of the Union. Nancy Pelosi doing, like, I don't know what she was doing. That like a new dance or something. I have no idea what that is. Maybe it's like a dance when you reach 85. I don't know, maybe. And then, Biden in the front of her, he cannot put two words together, and you have to look and repeat the words and miss some of the words. He has worse accent than me, actually. And then you have Kamala Harris. It's just a horrific picture of what those are the leaders who are running the country, right? So when you look at that, and you look at the Chinese youth power, determination, look at other people out there and what they are trying to accomplish, it's a very sad picture. So yes, I agree with you, we have till 2024, but I think they don't think so. The Democrats, even though you look at the very far left from the Ocasio-Cortez and others, they think that this is bad, or there is a divide in the Democratic Party. We have to have fair election to do what we are saying to do, that we're going to turn the tide. If we do not have fair election, it's going to be a problem. I would encourage everybody, whether they are buying into fair election or not, vote. Okay, people need to vote, and people need to grab as much people as they can to vote, because it's very important to vote. Even if the system is corrupt, I think we can overwhelm the corruption by our honest vote, that they cannot turn the thing. So if there is a corruption, let's overwhelm it by votes. What happened in Georgia is people got scared and they said, our votes does not count. That was a mistake. Okay, so to answer your question, what's going to happen from today till 4 years? You have to remember, all of this hardship that we're going through, it's only just a year. It's only 1 year in Biden when we have this inflation and the drop in the economy and everything that we have, and the world looking at us like babies and in fights. I don't know how it's going to happen in 3 years. And Obama, he's adamant to get what he wants to get, but other leaders are standing up. When Biden pushed the president of Egypt just 2 weeks ago, something that you don't hear about, he said, you need to release the Muslim Brotherhood out of jail. The president of Egypt, Sisi, don't like him, he's a dictator too. But Sisi heard from Biden, Biden telling him, you need to release the Muslim Brotherhood out of jail. You need to, do some changes over there to help the Muslim Brotherhood to rise again. You know what Sisi's response? Some bad words. On top of that, he said, don't want to send me the aid? Keep it for yourself. And then he went in the next morning at 6 o'clock in the morning in Egypt time, did not wait even the beginning of the day, announced death sentence for 15 Muslim Brotherhood members. And he said to the president of the United States, thank you, not thank you, but something else. Okay. And that's what he did. This is what the leaders, and you know what? I cannot even fathom people doing this to the United States, but they know our weakness. They know our darkness. They know that this is not a legitimate president. They know that they can do stuff. So I'm actually dependent today on other leaders to stand up for things. The Crown Prince of Saudi Arabia said today in the media that I don't care about what Biden thinks of me when the question has come out. He said that I am actually working with Israel so we can stop the aggression of the United States in the Middle East. Can you imagine those statements coming from dictators in the Middle East? This is coming from Saudi Arabia, okay? And then he said to Biden in a statement, says, Biden, stop meddling in our business and meddling in our countries. Those statements, did you hear them in the news? We did not, because we have a propaganda machine. So there is other leaders who are standing to, our stuff. I think it's time for us as well to send a strong message by strong words like those leaders do to our leadership and says, you are not going to destroy our country. I think we should do that very well. Don't you think? This is the real American spirit. Stop destroying our country. And they should be, if I was in Congress today, or if I'm a senator, and I wish all of those leaders will do what I just said today. And I said, do not act like you are the innocent Biden who does nothing. The bloodshed of the Ukrainian people is you are equally responsible for that blood, the same like Putin is. Do not think you are a good guy. You are not a good guy. I wish Republicans, leaders will do the same thing. And then we can stop the bloodshed, because otherwise the bloodshed is not going to stop. Okay. And let's continue praying for our country and praying for our safety and protection, and God will win at the end of the day. Okay. And I want to finish by this to make it very clear. Putin is a bad guy. I'm not saying he's a good guy. Putin is a dictator, a horrible bad guy. He is vouching for himself first and for his country second. But equally, Biden, Obama, Hillary, Macron, the leaders even in England today, the leaders in Germany, all of them are working together to implement a globalist agenda that is against the interest of the American people and the people of their own nations, but is going to benefit only the people of the top and the oligarchy. So let us kind of pray for God to expose them, to be defeating them at their tracks, and to make them accountable for their devious actions. All of them. Okay? Thank you very much.